Fake news. Is it something of the now? Or is it something that has always been around? As well, the historian in me knows that it's something that has always been around. And for a very long time, I didn't use, other than to teach it, to teach school, I didn't use these 4 years of history that I did as a bachelor's. For my master's, I did archaeology, but for history, I did 4 years. And I've been suffering in silence a lot of what Hollywood has been ejecting. And because, yes, people will say, and rightfully so, that insofar as Hollywood is concerned, we are talking about fiction. And that these producers are the first to say that these are fictionalized versions of history, then my inquiry and my issue with Hollywood really is then, why then don't you just call it fiction? Because some of it is not even fictionalized history, it's just fiction. So why don't you just completely change the names of the characters into and admit that these are completely different characters from the real ones, right? And these are things that one can enjoy if one is not an historian, because my issue really is then, if it's just fiction, if it's not history, if it's just fiction, then why don't you give the characters other names then? Because but they know exactly what they are doing, because in giving these real historical figures, these lives that have nothing to do, and these events that have nothing to do with what their lives actually were, you are planting in people a seed of misinformation. Do you think that the average Joe that doesn't have a history degree will remember at a certain given point that that's not exactly how it went for Napoleon or for Queen Charlotte or for Catherine the Great? No, they will remember what you fictionalized. They won't ever look for the real story, because they're too busy with their lives doing whatever that people have to do, pay bills, work, survive, whatever, to look for the real story. So the seed that they will have planted in them is the seed of misinformation. So this whole thing of fake news, all of this to say that this whole thing of fake news is not new, but it's going to really intensify as we progress in the next 10 years. And it's not new, it's always existed. People, historical figures, they have always been fictionalized, inclusively by historians who have lived after the period where these individuals have lived, right? The story, I could tell you that the story of Cleopatra has also been highly fictionalized. And if I were to tell you that she was not the woman that even a lot of historians who lived 100 years, 200 years after she lived, have had to say about her, you probably wouldn't believe me, because you are now too formatted with what has been fed to you by these male historians over the centuries, who romanticized the life of a woman who was very much and pretty much just used and discarded, and had actually, on the contrary to what they say, very little agency in the events that happened to her. They make her as this woman who was in control. It was quite the opposite of that, actually. I mean, if you just look at it factually and understand the times and understand who the Romans actually were in the world at the time, you'll understand that Cleopatra never had any power, and that she was actually very much used, abused, and discarded, not by one, but by two Romans, who then, the Roman historians that live 100 years after her, and later, much later, obviously, Hollywood tried to romanticize, as per what is always done in this patriarchal system. Let's romanticize abuse and try to make her the minx and the seductress, the one who was in control and seduced all of these men. No, I mean, I could tell you a thing or two about Cleopatra, but it's quite severe, actually, what happened to her. Her country was in the midst of getting invaded by these Roman generals. And let me tell you about something about Roman generals. They were everything but romantic. Are you kidding me? Roman generals would take. They would take. They would take your country, and they would take your women and your queens. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? They would take. So no. What happened between Cleopatra and those two generals was everything but romantic. And she had no agency. I don't care if you're a queen. These are two Roman generals that have come into your country with the long-term goal of invading. And they were de facto already doing it and already making way for what Augustus would then do another generation in. Anyway, having said that, be very careful, because this has always been there, this misinformation, namely by historians. This is what I'm trying to say. And I'm going to give you today a very fine example of historical misinformation that prevails to this very day, and that has been so ingrained in human consciousness and in the consciousness of people that are ill-informed or uninformed and literally just parrot what they have heard someone else say, that it still helps perpetuate phenomena, the likes of which I will expose in the conclusion of this video, that are completely poisonous and toxic and do not allow for these species to evolve, because they are still there. They are still there, perpetuated by those who wish to misinform the ignorant, those who also remain ignorant and misinformed, okay? And what I'm talking about today, what I'm going to talk about today is Queen Charlotte. So fasten your seatbelts. Okay, so Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, obviously I'm mispronouncing this because it's a Germanic name. She lived in the 1700s. She was born in May 1744, and she left this world on the 17th of November 1818. And she was the Queen of Great Britain and Ireland and the wife of the British King George III. Much has been said about this woman's ethnicity, and I am here to just dispel completely the aberrant stupidity around these rumors, okay? This is pretty much what I'm about to present to you, just so you can have an example of that misinformation that is around and that has always been around, and that I'm really exhausted of suffering. What I'm about to present to you is the real Charlotte. And you'll notice that I won't refer to her as Queen Charlotte, because I don't recognize royal titles or noble titles. I don't recognize any of that. In my own country, there is no such a thing as a monarchy. I'm the child of a republic. And before that, I also come from the future. So I don't have to call anyone queen or king, because no one is my queen or king. You know, the Brits, they can do that if they want to, because it's the system that they still have. But where I come from, no. Charlotte. So finally, the real Charlotte, as per depicted in her actual portraits and historical descriptions, and also why she was everything but biracial, and where this dumb rumor started. This is what this video is about. I came across this image a while ago when this wonderful designer on YouTube did us all the kindness of finally coming up with a reconstruction of her face according to, again, her portraits and historical accounts. Now, obviously, historical accounts, once more, were written by historians who are people. And so people can be biased. So they may have also narrated, people may also narrate events, and they may have also depicted her in their narrations in accordance with their own biases, right? Charlotte was seen at the time by the print media, a woman that looks like what you see in this picture, who would right now be consensually seen as a highly attractive woman, back in her day was portrayed in the print media as ugly. Okay, and that's exactly what we are going to talk about now. And as ugly because the implication was also that she had black ancestry. So therefore, she was ugly. This is what happened back in her day. Okay, so let's just start this video with that. A woman that looks like what you are seeing in this photo. Okay, let's just start with that. Okay, so here's the thing. As a 5th generation mixed race Portuguese woman, I'm a 5th generation mixed race Portuguese woman of Portuguese, African, and Balkan ancestry. To me, this woman looks incredibly Portuguese. I mean, let me just start by saying this. With a dash of German. I mean, let me just start by saying this. She looks like a Germanized version of my sister who looks very Portuguese, on the contrary to me. I look like more of the mutt that I am. But Charlotte just looks like a Germanized version of many Portuguese women that I have grown up around. She also looks a lot like this blonde, blue-eyed cousin that I have, who also, like her, resembles a mix between Portuguese and German. She's just a very typical Portuguese phenotype with some German features to her as well, which is interesting to me because, you know, historically and factually speaking, and wait, here goes the drum roll. That is exactly what her heritage is, Portuguese and Germanic. So, wow, you know, like, go figure. But above all, I can't really get over how Portuguese, especially, she looks. There's even a famous Portuguese actress that looks a lot like her. But anyway, that's just a side note to let you know of just how much of a phenotype she is in Portugal. The Anglo-Europeans were probably not used to this phenotype, which is why all the gossipy, jealous, toxic Marys of the time were talking. And you had these depictions in print of her getting portrayed in an animalistic sort of way, with hyper pronounced features, with her features being hyperly enlarged, as in caricaturish, to make fun of her and try to tell people, try to plant in people the seed of belief that she was ugly, right? Because most people at the time wouldn't have seen the queen and would believe in those depictions. So obviously she was surrounded by snakes at that court. We're not very happy about the way she looked, because it's what I'm saying. The only explanation that I have is that the Anglo-Europeans were probably, the Brits were probably not used to this phenotype, which is why you had all these gossipy, jealous, toxic Marys of the time talking. But facts are that her Moorish ancestor who lived, the Moorish ancestor that these people would give as proof that she was in fact black or mixed race or whatever stupid thing, this Moorish ancestor who lived 300 years before she was born, Afonso III's mistress, or Afonso III's mistress, this woman called Madragana, was not even ethnically Moorish anymore herself, because she too was far too removed from the time that the first Moors entered the Iberian Peninsula, and Portugal specifically. Plus, the Moors themselves weren't even black either. That's also a very stupid and very ignorant misconception. So it was beyond silly to go fetch this Moorish ancestor of hers from like the days of the whatever, that lived 300 years before her, and who herself was not even all that Moorish herself, because she was also too far removed from the first Moors coming into the Iberian Peninsula. It was beyond silly to go and fetch that to make her seem biracial. I mean, Charlotte, look at her. This woman is yes, she's clearly mixed, but between Portuguese and German. visibly. I mean, you can just look at her, you can see her. She was very charming. Now, she was also very, very, very charming and darling, and would have really stood out as especially attractive in a land of people with small, unpronounced, very forgettable, and very modest features. I mean, let's face it. She would have really stood out as especially attractive back then. She has a very modern type of beauty. And the rumors about her were clearly ill-intended, as having black ancestry back then would have obviously been seen as a bad thing. And those were obviously fueled by jealousy and resentment of her foreign beauty, as I bet that they were started by women also. I mean, of course. To this very day, some women from the Isles can still be very vicious to attractive foreign women. There's obviously a lot to resolve there. But anyway, I am pretty sure that Charlotte's life at court was not easy at all at first, with all the envious vipers and snakes and these horrible, disgusting caricatures. Selling fake stories about her ethnicity to the print press so as to make her seem undeserving of her place seems to have been the only way that they found to target her. It's the same old story with women in this world, which is why I keep saying that we can't really complain about any patriarchy when so many of us still work so proactively to enforce it and to keep it in place. When so many of us still work so proactively to destroy each other, to destroy the next woman. Facts are, regardless of all that, facts are that Charlotte was ethnically European. I will repeat this again. Charlotte was ethnically European. And that does not only mean Anglo-Celtic looking. And I'm sorry if I have to follow this sentence with a duh. I will repeat this again. Charlotte was ethnically European. Those are facts. And ethnically European does not only mean Anglo-Celtic looking. Again, duh. Oh my God. I mean, it's a whole continent. Anyway, and 200 years into her passing, it's about time that the Jelly Nellies leave her the fleck alone already, and also stop using her to feed into whatever dumb agenda. The UK could have never had a mixed race African descent queen. Not then and not now. Are you kidding me? In 2021, the UK hounded out its only African descent mixed race royal duchess. Only now in 2021. And while also being very unworried about the optics. So stop. Please stop. And leave Charlotte all the way alone with the false, actually highly racist rumors. Because facts are that even if she were mixed race, branding her black, as many also do, also reinforces the slavers' one-drop rule. Do you see now why I can't handle the stupidity, guys? Do you see now why I don't go out, why I don't leave my house, why I don't socialize with people, why I do my best to avoid people? It's because I can't deal with the level of stupidity and manipulation and evil. Because all of these British people now trying to use her as a flag that proves that they are not racist, and that the reason why they hate on Meghan Markle is not that they are racist. It's so aberrantly, gigantically, disgustingly stupid that I don't even have the words for it. When the woman was not even mixed race. Let me tell you, if she did have this Moorish ancestor, whose name they don't even know because they know nothing about history. They only but repeat what they hear from the other hateful idiot, from the next hateful idiot. This woman that was a mistress to the Portuguese king. If she was indeed an ancestor of Charlotte's, again, she lived 300 years before Charlotte, and she herself was not even all that Moorish anymore, centuries into the Moors having come into the Iberian Peninsula. So even if she did indeed have this woman for an ancestor, which we are not certain of, but even if she did, that wouldn't even give her a 1% of blackage. That wouldn't even give her a 1% of black blood, because Madragana was not even all that Moorish anymore herself. She was mixed, highly mixed herself with Portuguese people. And looking at Charlotte, she's a very typical Portuguese phenotype with Germanic features, which a lot of Portuguese people also have, let's face it. I grew up seeing a lot of, a few blonde and red-headed, light-eyed Portuguese people also. One of my Portuguese friends is a redhead. So can we stop, in her case, because she descends from Celts anyway, but can we just stop? So this is just to tell you how we are still living under misinformation and how it's going to intensify in the next 10 years. And you could ask me, but Selma, how do we fight it? Do we go, for instance, do we become paranoid and see everything as misinformation all of a sudden? And because that's what a lot of people are also doing, because they understand this concept of misinformation, what has been popularized recently as fake news. They've also become paranoid and, see conspiracy everywhere. Also, be careful not to fall into that rabbit hole. So how do you avoid falling into the shadow trap of misinformation? Sorry, let me just give us more light. It's easy. You withhold judgment. Very easy. How is this worse all of a sudden? You withhold judgment. You just withhold judgment. Oh, this is a lot better. That's what you do. If we simply withhold judgment, we don't need to be afraid of misinformation. If we simply observe, come from the point of view of the observer instead of the judgmental prick, which is something, it's an exercise that I myself have to make every single day. Selma, you're being a little judgy right now. Try to avoid that vibration. That's a shadow vibration. That's not a light vibration. If we come from the stance simply of the observer and withhold judgment until we actually gather more information, until we actually feel like we've seen the enough and we now know the enough, then we needn't fear misinformation. And we needn't even look for it everywhere. Just observe. Just be in the position of the observer for a while. Not everything requires a commentary. Not everything requires you to comment. This is also what I'm trying to say, right? Observe. And exactly because you know that you are in the era of misinformation. And I'm telling you as of now that that's going to intensify in the next 10 years. Because, with the wars intensifying as well, we are going to see every side telling their own little story. How about, instead of taking part in the polarization with an attitude of judgment, how about we just sit back and observe for a change, knowing that everybody's telling their own little story? Maybe we should just take the intelligent attitude, both intellectually and emotionally intelligent attitude of observing. That's how we can deal with it. I myself have been doing that exercise a lot. I've been self-monitoring myself. I've been self-monitoring a lot for judgment, a lot. Even the other day, I had a very important session with Spirit, with my light mentors, and I asked them, I'm not a judgmental person, so why do I keep on coming after Cleopatra with such judgment? I don't want to judge her because something tells me, because I can feel on an intuitive level, I can feel it very deeply in my blood, in my veins, that horrible things were done to her. So why do I sometimes come at her with judgment? What is wrong with that? Why am I doing this? I don't like that vibration. I don't like to be in a vibration of judgment. That's not me. And I'm never judgmental towards people. So why have I seldom done that towards Cleopatra, this queen? And what I got from Spirit was, well, Selma, because it's spiritual. Because you see her, because she's a mirror to you. You've connected to her in a way where you both admire her and can't stand her. And because she's a mirror, you're using her as a mirror. That's where the judgment comes from. And immediately, as soon as Spirit told me her real story, and this is the New Age part of it, not the social scientist part of it anymore. I mix both in this channel, as the ones of you watch my videos know. Immediately as they told me exactly what happened to her, I couldn't contain myself and I was crying like a child. And I understood then my judgment and why I was using her as a mirror. Guys, have your onion tea. I'm having onion tea today, but I put a couple of rosebuds in it because I love rose tea also. Onion tea with honey, and I'm using a couple of rosebuds. The roses are cleansing. They cleanse your energy, and the onions are just to clean my throat and to soothe my throat because I'm still coughing. So take care of yourself. It's all about self-care right now, but self-monitoring, like I keep saying in this video. It's amazing how everything comes together at the end of every single one of my videos, isn't it? So how do we dodge the bullet and the shadows of fake news and of misinformation? By avoiding judgment and by simply taking the stance of the observer. Knowing that chances are that we are not in possession of the full information because we are in the era of misinformation. The clever, smarter, most intelligent way to deal with that phenomenon will always be to simply take on the position of the observer and to dig in and research if the topic actually interests you. And then to search your soul and align yourself and speak to spirit as well. Speak to your light mentors as well as much as you can. Ask them to communicate with you during dreams if you can't communicate with them while awakened or in meditation, so that they can give you information if you can't trust what is out there as easily as one used to. And because at the end of the day, we could never trust what is out there. We could never trust our news channels and so-called media, be it print or TV or internet or whatever. Look at the example that I just gave you with Charlotte. We could never trust it. It's just that now we know that we can't trust it. We're awakening. How awesome is that? Okay? And so that's it. This is the video. Let me go finish my tea now and think about my writing, because I seriously want to go back to writing. I know that my next book is going to be a Gaian book. I know that it's going to be about Gaia, but I need to go back to writing because I'm a writer. That's what I do. I feel like eventually, once my next book is out, I may even put the channel to rest, because the reason why I'm posting so much is because I'm not writing as much. And in writing is where I find myself and become one with my own knowledge that I access when I am aligned, okay? And right now I have to confess that I'm in the process of aligning myself further so that my next book comes to me. I know that it's going to be about this planet this time. I've finally landed from space and I'm grounded, I'm rooted. I just need to align myself with spirit further, with God further, so I can receive my next book. But I'm here. I finally landed on Earth. I'm not trying to escape it anymore. I'm finally with Gaia, present, and I know that my next book is going to be all about her. I just need to continue to further align myself so it can come to me. So that's all that we have to do, guys. Just align yourself with the light. That's it, okay? And that is actually how you are able to surmount everything and anything that will get thrown at us, that may get thrown at us over the next 10 years especially. Anyway, love you all, and I'll see you there for my next video when I do. Bye.